Happy Monday, everyone. It's Mindfulness Monday. And let's see, today's session is devoted to becoming mindful of our inner critic. Just had this interesting interaction with my sister-in-law um, this past weekend. So many of you guys know, my mom and dad live in Italy. It's very far away. Um, I've done a few sessions from there, and yeah, things aren't going great. So it's stressful. I'm feeling pretty sort of unclear as to what to do. Like there's no right answers here. I can't predict the future, but there's this pull to be closer and to be of support and help and so on. And so I was having this. I was expressing this to my sister-in-law, and she was saying, "Well, surely you must feel really good about how you've been showing up for them and how you've been supporting them." And it really caught me off guard because I realized that I don't. Like there's a fair amount of struggle with just feeling, gosh, I guess it's like everything from guilty to feeling like I'm not doing enough and I should do more and I should, take more time off and head over there and support. And again, I'm pretty clear there's no right answer here, but it really was an interesting experience to notice how deeply ingrained I have this sense of not enoughness, or that there's somehow something that I'm falling short of. So I chalk that up to the inner critic. He's always there. In my case, he's I'm guessing we're all pretty familiar with our inner critic. And so the question is, what do you do about the inner critic when he or she pops up and starts doing that squawking thing that's kind of nonstop? Or in this case, what really caught me off guard was I wasn't really struggling consciously with stuff, but it wasn't until she mentioned something about like, hey, you ought to feel, surely you feel a certain way, where I realized like, whoa, no, I'm way short of that. So anyway, so the goal for today's session is to see if we can just make some space for the inner critic with some compassion, some spaciousness, some kindness, and just realize it's just yet another part of the sense of self that's always there, and we don't want to resort to sort of this black and white thinking of, oh, the inner critic's bad. It's more about leaning into it and saying, yeah, why is that there? And what does that what what is there for me to learn about this or change in terms of how I relate to that part of me? So without further ado, let's spend the next 11 minutes doing that. So close your eyes. Just setting the intention to be open, present, and willing to explore whatever comes up. And oftentimes, I think exploring just starts with the willingness to just be with whatever shows up. So before we can really peel back the layers of the onion, we just need to accept the fact that the onion is there, that our eyes are watering, burning a little bit, and yeah, just a willingness to just be there before we dig in. So I know the inner critic is not bad. It's not something we want to push away. I think the inner critic is just a young part of ourselves that's usually scared and then resorts to some degree of just binary or black and white thinking. There's just good, bad, right, wrong. The inner critic loves that. And so the challenge here is to meet that part of ourselves with our adult self and just say, yeah, I see you. That's okay. I get why you think the way that you think. And I'm here to hold that space and then kind of cajole us into a different direction. And so we can, just to make this a little more tangible, we can start with just the body. Just think of your biology, the body that you have, that you were given at birth, and just notice what does the inner critic have to say about the body? What should be different? What should be better? And see if you can bring the adult into the room and meet that inner critic with some compassion and understanding of like, yeah, I get it. You think my body should be different than it is, somehow better, however we define that. I think a really adult question to ask the inner critic is, and what would be different if the body was changed or different in the way that you think it should be? Then what? How would we be better off if that were the case? Just make space for that answer. And then we can do the same with relationships. I oftentimes have this inner critic that says I'm not patient enough, I don't listen intently enough, I'm not passionate enough. Again, just noticing in what relationships does that inner critic come up for you? What does the inner critic think you should be able to do better or more of in your relationships? And then bringing the adult into the room, making space for the inner critic's experience. Again, realizing that's a young, scared part of ourselves. Feels like it's not living up to certain expectations. Just making space for that experience. And then this overall sense of success. What does it mean to be successful? What does the inner critic have to say about that? What is it that you're not doing to be as successful as you could be? Professionally, personally, spiritually. The inner critic usually has some pretty black and white things to say about this kind of stuff. And so it's the adult part of us that comes in and can handle the nuance of, yeah, I get it. That's something a 3 or a 4-year old might say. Of course, life is a little more nuanced and complicated than that. So, how do things shift, if they shift at all, when we make space for our inner critic as it has opinions about our body, the way we show up in relationships, the way we show up in life, how we pursue our goals and our dreams? What if we meet that part of ourselves with kindness and compassion? What would it take to do that? In my experience, half the challenge here is just the noticing part, just becoming aware of how much pressure the inner critic places on our moment by moment experience. How quick we are then, once we notice, to push that away rather than open up to it and lean in and say, it's okay. You're just doing your job. And my job as the adult is to add perspective and equanimity and kindness to the whole conversation. Take a deep breath in through the nose, slow exhale through the mouth, slowly pushing all the air out of your lungs and your belly. And then hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. In through the nose, out through the mouth. This time, relaxing the chest, relaxing the belly, just allowing the breath to escape by collapsing. And hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Just allow the body to breathe on its own. And your eyes going back to the session. Um, yeah, hope that sets you up for a little more mindfulness and also kindness towards your inner critic for the rest of the day. So hope to see you tomorrow, everyone. Take care.